Along with impressive box office successes, acting stars often burst out as well. Johnny Depp got the most out of his participation in the Pirates series. His royalties immediately after the first film's release flew to $20 million. Sometimes he even conquered the bar of $50 million, and in the case of the continuation of Pirates, and even more. But he was not the only lucky one. Orlando Bloom for the first Pirates received about $500,000, then for the sequels of a few million. That's just what an impressive career got Johnny Depp, who was already a star before Pirates. I would like to recall the rise of Orlando Bloom, who had every chance to become a big star. But it wasn't lucky enough. The takeoff speed of Orlando Bloom was impressive, but it didn't make it to the top. Such a fast flight down from it is surprising. After all, in the early '90s, Orlando Bloom's face flashed on the covers of various publications much more often than the faces of other famous young actors. He only lit up in a few British TV series, where no one noticed his talent. The actor got an audition for the movie The Lord of the Rings. Selecting actors for Peter Jackson's trilogy was hard, so we had to recruit them by advertisement. Peter Jackson Orlando did not want to take it and invited him to try his hand at the elf role. Bloom did not refuse and, for a year and a half of filming, received $175,000. The fee may seem modest, which it is. But that's not because Bloom was wronged for any reason. All of the central actors received similar fees. Sean Astin was the highest paid Hobbit and earned as much as $250,000 for the 3 films. Sean Bean was the most successful, making the same amount, but only for 1 movie. And the winner of the Battle of Superstars is Andy Serkis. He earned $1 million. In general, the figures, of course, are ridiculous for 3 films. But Bloom says that he would have agreed to shoot for twice as much money to appear in such a project. Sean Connery, for example, the studio was ready to pay $10 million and 15% of the box office. But since no one wanted to appear in The Lord of the Rings, we had to take unknown actors, like Orlando Bloom. But if Orlando took a certain risk by signing up for a movie like this, after the first trailers came out, The Lord of the Rings became one of the year's most anticipated films. Several box office records were broken, and the box office receipts passed the $800 million mark with a budget of $90 million. Before the premiere in cinemas, The Lord of Rings Blooms also managed to get a small role in Black Hawk Down. It was he spectacularly got out of a helicopter in the air, after which his presence in the movie Ridley Scott, in general, ended. But after the premiere of the trilogy's first film, Orlando got one of the leading roles in the Australian film Ned Kelly. Nothing good came out of this. Even the presence of Heath Ledger in the frame did not help. The film flopped in Australia, and the world almost everywhere else and was released immediately on the medium. However, all parts of The Lord of the Rings were great at the box office. The real breakthrough for Bloom was another movie, the role in which, however, he only got because the director Gore Verbinski wanted an actor from The Lord of the Rings, which is inexpensive but can be a very profitable acquisition. The other option was Heath Ledger, who did not have The Lord of the Rings. After the release of Pirates of the Caribbean on the big screens, Bloom pounced on all the studios of Hollywood. His royalties soared from $300,000 to $3 million. With one exception, the creators of Troy might be happy because they managed to sign the actor before the release of Pirates of the Caribbean on the big screen, and pay him $1 million does not have to. Orlando Bloom does not like Troy, and thinks his character is a complete wimp. But the proposals at that time, he had not yet been inundated. And working on the next big movie, albeit in the role of an idiot, seemed to him the right choice. If Pirates and The Lord of the Rings was a box office hit, then Troy is not so unambiguous. Much more was expected of the film. The studio was strongly disappointed by the failure at the United States box office. Although they made this movie hoping to repeat Gladiator's success, even the budget was supposed to be precisely the same as the $100 million. But Brad Pitt and Wolfgang Petersen blew it up to $175 million, eventually making the box office $497 million a very modest result. Orlando tells us that he didn't want to do Kingdom of Heaven. He wasn't impressed with the screenplay. He wasn't going to do another historical film right after Troy, but Ridley Scott was able to talk Orlando into it. And when he was informed that his refusal might upset the talented director, Bloom immediately agreed but asked $2 million for it. Kingdom of Heaven was one of the major flops of 2005. The film managed to collect only $47 million in the United States, which on a budget of $130 million looked like a real disaster. The worldwide box office receipts of $211 million, along with sharply negative criticism and direct reviews from the general public. No chance of break-even was left. Later, the director's version of the film was released, which greatly improved the ordinary viewer's attitude to the Kingdom of Heaven. But all this was afterward, and Bloom, who had the most criticism for the film, did not help much. Orlando, however, had one other film that could have corrected its affairs. It was Elizabethtown, directed by Cameron Crowe. In those years, it was one of the top critics' favorites, with several Oscar nominations under his belt, including a victory for the screenplay for Almost Famous. The option probably turned out to be a near win-win. Even if the film fails, as it did, the same Almost Famous critic audiences will love it. This means that the consequences for their careers will not be. Moreover, he wrote the script for this film, Crowe, counting on it Bloom. When Orlando could not agree to the filming in the Kingdom of Heaven, the director took the lead role of Ashton Kutcher. But at the pre-production stage, he did not like how Ashton looked next to Kirsten Dunst, and the actor was quickly removed from the project. Filming had to be postponed, and the freed Bloom was still able to play in the movie. Elizabethtown ultimately failed at the box office, receiving devastating reviews from critics. This fiasco the hardest hit the director. He disappeared from Hollywood for 6 years. Bloom decided to challenge himself and began to refuse all roles he was offered, giving preference to specific projects like the same series extras. At the same time, he decided to give himself to the theater. It's hard to say what would have happened if he had done otherwise. He still had the second and the third parts of Pirates of the Caribbean, and in theory, he could have afforded some search for himself, but that search was delayed. And when Pirates of the Caribbean died out, it turned out that no one needed Bloom, although he tried to do much more in the movies. However, absolutely all films with the actor completely failed. Even when he appeared in any movie in a cameo role, it all ended very sadly. Some comeback for Bloom could be the participation in the filming of The Hobbit. But apparently, the limit of luck he had previously exhausted. So what are the bonuses Bloom did not earn? Other films with the actor continued to go under. Every year, Orlando Bloom releases a new movie that no one expected. All this led to mediocre reviews from audiences and failures at the box office. The actor even tried to star in a Chinese film. Although it was an expensive action film by Chinese standards, the Asians ignored it, and it received a mean score of 4 out of 10 from them. And then came the latest Pirates. Bloom, these failures forced it out of the movies again. In 2015, Orlando seemed to make another attempt to return. He starred in the military action film The Outpost with Scott Eastwood. All in all, the movie didn't stand a chance. One of the actor's most recent works to date is the series Carnival Row. It was supposed to be one of the big hits for Amazon, but it ended up being very bad with the numbers there. Bloom is 45, and it's too early to bury it. Although with his specific relationship to movies and love of disappearing, it's unlikely that there will be any serious talk of a comeback in the future. Bloom isn't an exceptionally gifted actor. He has a narrow range of childish looks that prevent him from projecting any genuine seriousness, and he always plays the same smirky, swashbuckling, haughty hero. But it's likely that he'll stick to independent or English movies in the near future.